Okay, Tommy, so we're official now. I wanted to ask you first if you could sort of talk about what the show is like for people who maybe, think of Cheech and Chong from the movies or haven't seen you guys lately. What are you guys up to on stage?
Well, the show is much like a comedy musical because we got War, probably the greatest rhythm and blues band ever to come out of the 60s. And we're it's going to be like a full on old time passion kind of party where we play music, we laugh, we joke, we have a good time. Cheech and Chong come out and we act like the icons that we are, and we do a little Q&A, and then we bring War out and we do a couple of songs with War, and then we leave the stage and War stays on and plays until intermission. And then we take an intermission, and then we come back very theatrical. The lights lower, and then Cheech comes on stage, and it's like a play now. And then it's called The Undercover Cop. And so we do our old Dave's Not Here bit. We do some bits that we've never done on stage before. Santa Claus and his old lady, Dave's Not Here, and our classic iconic bits, and then we put them into like theatrical pieces, and then after we do our classic bits, then we bring War back out, and they play their hits, and then toward the end of the War set, Cheech and Chong come out, and we do our musical hits, and then we do a big sing along at the end. And sing up and smoke, and everybody's had a good time. That's the end of the show.
Right. It sounds like quite a production. So you guys must have to. Did you have to rehearse, or does it just sort of come naturally to sort of orchestrate this whole thing?
We rehearsed with War and Tower of Power. We were with both of them in the beginning, and we're doing some gigs with both the bands again. Which is like a 4-hour show, but no one ever left. Everybody that shows up there, man, people are so used to, long shows because we do short bits, and it makes the show does seem a lot shorter than what it really is. And it was our agents that came up, War's agent, our agent came up with this brainstorm of having War open or, be part of the show. And it's really paid off because in this day and age, there was a time back in the day, where music acts just played music. And then they started having comedians come out to get booed, get ridiculed, because the audience at one time just wanted to hear the bands. Well, we're at the social media age where everybody's got ADD, and so we give them a little bit of everything. And at the end of the night, everybody's very satisfied. They just don't want just music. They don't want just comedy, but they want just everything, and that's what we give them, everything.
Along those lines, is it different to try and get a laugh these days? Is it harder or easier, or do you find that different bits connect and that it didn't connect before, or how does that for you on stage? What's your perspective?
Well, the rule of comedy is that you have to connect with your audience. That's the rule, And a lot of it's regional, but like I said, with the social media, a lot of it's universal. And so we can do jokes now, not only in America, but we can do them in Europe, or we can do them in Australia. And they get over. There's some universal experiences that everybody has, and smoking pot, I think, is the most universal experience there is on the planet today, and I think that's attributes to Cheech and Chong's longevity, is because when all else fails, light a joint. Everybody understands that one.
Right, yeah, it's the universal language there.
Yeah, the big connector, and then we connect with the audience. You know, like I do my homework. You know, I find out what little town. You know, we find out the little gossip in certain areas. You know, so we drop these little truth bombs on them, and as long as you do that, you know, the audience, as long as the audience is involved, you know, then you got a show. You know, it's when the audience and the performers disconnect, you know, and that happens, you know, because but not with us, because we've always been part of the audience. You know, it always seemed that Cheech and Chong just walked out of the audience and got on stage.
And what about you and Cheech in terms of your own connection? I know there was obviously you didn't perform together for a while, and you've been back together for a while. So is it smooth sailing? What's your relationship like?
Yeah, well, ever since Cheech got a sex change operation, his divorce. No, he's we get along really well. Actually, you know what it was? What happened is that when we were younger, we played out our string. You know, we did as much as we could together back then, and then we either had a breakup or the act would have just died on its own. And so we've always been so in tune with what's going on that we just naturally went our different ways. It was a natural progression. I learned how to do stand-up. Cheech went on to act in a ton of movies with different directors. So he learned how to be a stage or a screen actor. I learned how to be a stand-up comic. I taught my wife how to become a stand-up comic. And so when we got back together at the end, we both had a really interesting new things that we could do, and so that's what really kept us alive. You know, the fact that we did break up really helped us stay together.
And do you have any kind of plan on how long you want to perform together? Do you take it like 1 year at a time, or what's there?
Well, nature kind of takes care of that one. You know, we don't have much time. You know, that's why wherever we perform, you know, I try to tell everybody, you know, it could be our last performance. So, you know, make sure you come. Nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. You know, I mean, you think of the Beatles. You know, they weren't even together 10 years. You know, so you know, and the fact that Cheech and Chong were still together after 30 some odd years, but it's not going to last. You know, I've been, and that's the way I treat everything like that too. I treat every day like it's my last day, because it could be. You know, and so you know, we just live in the moment, and we're going to perform as long as we can, and when it's time to do something else, we'll be doing it. But you know, it's not going to last.
And I think I read that you had some health issues recently, right? You had a cancer scare, is that right?
Yeah, prostate cancer. I got diagnosed with prostate cancer. Then I underwent some pretty extensive marijuana hemp treatments, and then I got reevaluated a couple of months later, and the cancer disappeared. Now, I'm not saying that it was the pot. It's a combination of a few things, you know, and but pot was definitely the foremost, you know, because it you know, the marijuana helps with MS, it helps with Alzheimer's, and it helps with cancer, and it explodes tumors. There's a lot of health benefits, and the American people are starting to realize that, you know, which is why Colorado's legal and Washington State, you know, is legal, and California's got the medical, and so I had the issues, but they're gone. And actually, cancer saved my life, because I was on a pretty bad diet for a while there, and since you know, I had that scare, I've changed my diet, my whole lifestyle has changed, and I'm probably, well, I am healthier than Cheech, I know that, and I probably will live to be at least, but I'll probably piss a lot of the insurance companies off because they'll be paying for my health. I'll probably pass 100 easy.
That's a nice prediction right there. And did I read that you had stopped smoking pot for a while before you adopted it as your treatment, or was that wrong that I read that?
No. What was that again?
I read somewhere that you had stopped smoking pot for a while, and then you resumed when you. Well,
I had to. I think it was when I stopped. What happened, when I got arrested for the bongs, the minute I got arrested, I had to stop smoking pot because they put you on what they call pre-trial probation. And so the minute you get arrested, you're on probation, and you're doing the P test and all that. And so I quit in '03, and I never started up again till I got out of jail and off probation. So I quit for 3 years, and I believe that's when I contacted. That's when I got cancer. I believe I got it while I was in jail, because of the living conditions in the jail is built over a toxic waste dump in Taft, California, and they've had what they call there's a wasting disease called valley fever, and a lot of the inmates in the desert, people in the desert, they know about valley fever, and it's airborne kind of from contamination, and it causes cancer, all sorts of cancers, and I believe that the fact that I really firmly believe that marijuana acts as a a vaccine. It protects you from a lot of bad things. And it was during that time I contacted cancer, because before I went in, I was healthy as a horse, And then when I got out, I felt the issues. I could feel the issues. And then when I got checked, and I found out that I had prostate cancer, that's what that was my thing. And then ever since I dosed myself with heavy doses of hash oil, and it kind of puts you in a coma. And then I got checked again, and I was basically legally cancer free.
Why do you think the attitudes are changing? What do you think is sort of prompting this sort of shift in attitudes?
It's the I think personally, I think it's the Googling. I think the fact that you can Google anything. People say, who was in that movie? And 2 seconds later, you got the answer. And so when people say about marijuana being dangerous, they Google marijuana and they find out no. Marijuana is not dangerous. Marijuana can do all sorts of things. And so when people get ailments like Alzheimer's or MS, MS is a terrible nerve disease that is totally treated with marijuana. The one talk show host, what's his name, the black guy, Montel Williams. He had MS so bad that he was almost using a cane, and then he started, and he still does marijuana to treat his MS, and it kept it in check. And so I think what happened is that the American public are waking up to all the lies and the myths that the big business put out about marijuana. And, because that's what they did. Big business back in the day, the oil companies and the DuPonts and all the big chemical companies, they put out, the hit on marijuana, with William Randall Hearst in his papers, because, the hemp paper is the most durable paper that we had, and it didn't cost a single tree. But the Hearst people, they had tracts of forest that they had to sell, and the only way they could sell it would be to make hemp unavailable. And so hemp is still unavailable in America today, which is a travesty. It's horrible. But in the rest of the world, hemp is making a huge comeback. And marijuana as a recreational use, as a sleep aid, as a dietary aid, as a MS, as a protected, it protects you. You know, there's a lot of these serial killers. You know, these guys that go into theaters and kill people with AKAs. You know, a lot of it was caused by the pharmaceutical legal drugs that they were taking for their depression. And had they been on marijuana, none of that would have happened. So we're as a people, as a nation, we're getting educated, and the more educated we become, the more legal and the more available marijuana will become to everybody.
And do you think that, you know, I guess it was 10 years ago when you were arrested and pled guilty, do you think that wouldn't have happened today because the world has changed that much? To sort of, you know, have we moved away from that, you know, sort of...
Totally. I went to jail because of the Iraqi war. I mistakenly thought that America would be too involved in fighting a war and fighting terrorists than they would be in incarcerating me for selling a bong. It was a paraphernalia law that they enforced. And I was the only one that went to jail. And they wanted a name. And because I represented, you know, From Up in Smoke, the movie, it was even in the indictment that because I should go to jail because I made movies that made fun of law enforcement agencies. And that was the only time it could have happened was back then, under those circumstances. Because, you know, it was during the Republican term in office. You know, whenever there's a Republican in office, then the war on drugs heats up. Because it really is a war on Democrats and war on people. And whenever a Democrat's in office, then the war subsides. But the trouble is, these laws, they're hidden, and they stay on the books. And we're finding out, you know, thanks to social media, that the government has been operating illegally for many years, and continues to do so. And so, while we feel that we live in a free society, the only freedom that we really have is the freedom of information that people have been given us, you know, and risking going to jail, you know, like the Snowdens and all the ones that have been blowing the whistle on America, you know, thanks to those people, you know, that nothing's really, we're learning the truth about these people, you know, and the truth is that America is controlled by big business, and big business, you know, the ones that are getting the tax breaks and that are using their tax break money, I call them money hoarders. You know, the Republicans, a lot of Republicans are hoarders. You know, they can never get enough money. And so they'll cut social programs, they'll do all sorts of things, and they'll do things like war on drugs, you know, the war on pot, which is really, you know, a war on poor people. And all that is ending because we're learning the truth, and the truth shall set you free, and it set me free. And ever since I got out of jail and become an activist, you know, my life has really just improved to, you know, I mean, my health has improved, my outlook has improved, and these people, they're all going to go down like Dick Cheney and George Bush, you know, and Richard Nixon, you know, and Ronald Reagan. We'll put them all together. You know, those guys are going to be all lumped together in history as losers, and because they are, you know, and the winners like the Jimmy Carters and the, you know, Bill Clintons and the Barack Obamas now, they're going to go down in history as saviors.
Do you think that you have gotten funnier over the years? I mean, all this, you've been through obviously a lot of major ups and downs, the stuff we talked about. So does that make you just sort of, do you think you're more in the moment when you're on stage, or more appreciating, being sort of getting to entertain people and being in that position?
Well, no, you know what happens with old comedians? We develop we become iconic. We become very iconic. A lot of people now, they want to see us not to laugh, but really to be in our presence. To be, it's like a historical moment. There they are. It'd be like if the Beatles got together. They wouldn't have to play a note. They would just have to stand on stage, and everybody would just stare at them. Much like the Stones. And that's where we, like the Stones, people don't want to hear any new tunes or anything. They just want to see them. And if they never played a note, the people would still be, wow, there they are, And that's what Cheech and Chong, that's what we've become iconic. And as far as being funny, yeah, I mean, we can be funny, but it's really hard to laugh at icons as much as you would, say, the latest, the new like Louis C.K., for instance. To me, he is one of the funniest guys out there. But in a few years, he'll become iconic, and people will remember him for being that funny guy. But he doesn't necessarily have to be funny at that particular moment. And so this is what we've done. We're like kind of like royalty now. You can wheel us out and and wave at the crowd, and the people go and just as our presence remind them of how we've affected their lives. More than anything now, when we appear anywhere, people want to meet us to tell us how we affected their lives. And to me, that means more than having someone, to actually, comment and say, oh, that one bit you did was so funny, Because right now, at our stage in our life, like they say, showing up is half the battle, and that's what we're doing. So as far as being, of course, we have the natural timing now over the years. You can't deny that, Like we inducted there again. We inducted Lou Adler into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we never, Cheech and I never rehearsed any speech, any talk, or anything. We just walked out there and did our thing, and it was funny, and but it was of the moment, and I've met a lot of old time comics. I met Dick Shawn at a roast one time, and he did the same thing, and I knew Red Fox really well, and I used to marvel at Red Fox because he'd been around for so long that he wouldn't even think of what he was going to do on stage. Like when I first started working comedy, I would be backstage, just mulling over what I was going to say, when I was going to say it, what I was going to do, and I was like in a frenzy almost. And then I met Red Fox, and he's sitting there talking to someone, and they say, and here he is, Red Fox, and he'd put his drink down, and he'd walk on stage, and he would do 2 hours of the most incredible, funny show you ever saw in your life without even thinking about it. And that's where we are today now with our act, Cheech and I will go out, and we'll just do what we've always done, but it'll seem like we're doing it for the first time, So miles and miles and miles of comedy is what you're getting when you see Cheech and Chong.
So thanks so much for taking a little time out to chat. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, man, and look forward to seeing you.